Hey everybody, and welcome to today's lesson. Today we're going to be talking about transversals. So first of all, what is a transversal? Let me show you real quick. So say you have a pair of parallel lines. So we've got our two nice little parallel lines right here. They both go like totally straight. They will never ever meet because they are parallel. Well, okay, so what if I add another line that cuts through both of these parallel lines? Maybe something like this. This guy that's cutting across the lines, this one right here, this is called a transversal. Okay, it might look a little bit different. You could do parallel lines this way, and then your transversal could go this way. That would work. Or your parallel lines might be kind of diagonal, and your transversal could go that way. But most of the time, you're going to see it where the parallel lines are going pretty much that way, and the transversal cuts across pretty much that way. So what's the big deal with transversals? Well, when you make a transversal, when you have a transversal, it creates all these different angles. Like there's an angle here, I'll name it 1, and there's another angle here, and here, and here. There are 8 different angles that get formed by the transversal, and there are all these different relationships between these angles. A lot of them are congruent, some of them are supplementary, and so that's what we're going to be learning about today. So here's your notes page. Let's look at this top part. It says here, corresponding angles are, okay, so I should start at the beginning. Properties of transversals to parallel lines. Okay, so if two parallel lines are intersected by a transversal, well, if they are what we call corresponding angles, and we will talk about those in just a second. We'll talk about all of these in just a second. If they're corresponding, they're going to be congruent. And what does congruent mean? That's just the same thing as saying they have equal measure. So if one of the corresponding angles is 60 degrees, the other one is also 60 degrees. All right, what if you have alternate interior angles? Guess what? They are also congruent. And then what if you have what we call alternate exterior angles? Guess what? They are also congruent. All right, so let's take a look at what these things actually are talking about. Okay, so directions, color code the following sets of angles by coloring some angle pairs. We'll get to that in just a second. First of all, let's talk about this guy. Corresponding angle pairs. Okay, what does this word corresponding mean? Let me make this a little bit bigger. So corresponding kind of means matching or the same relative position. So this is how I want you to think about the corresponding angles. If you were to draw a square around this first intersection point, you see how this is like an intersection point where the lines cross? So if you draw a square around it, you're going to catch those first 4 angles, right? Okay. Now I want you to draw another square, or if you like circles, you could do circles too, it doesn't matter, around the other intersection point. So you have the first 4 angles together here, and the second 4 angles here. Okay, so now look in your first square or circle if you did one. That top left angle, see the number 4 here? That's my top left one. It will be corresponding with the top left angle down here. So the 4 and the 8 would be corresponding. Let me go ahead and color code that like the instructions say. So the 4 and the 8 are corresponding. Okay, what if you have like the bottom right? Let's do the bottom right angle. Okay, so the bottom right angle here is number 2. And the bottom right one, let's see, bottom right is going to be number 6 over there. So angles 2 and 6 are also going to be corresponding. There's 2 more sets of corresponding angles here. Can you find them? Yeah. Okay, so the top right would correspond with the top right, so you'd have 1 and 5. And the bottom left corresponds with the bottom left, so you'd have 3 and 7. Okay, so again, what does that mean? Well, corresponding angles are congruent. So say the measure of angle 4 was 75 degrees. That would mean that 8 is also 75 degrees. It doesn't really look like 75 degrees, so it's probably a different angle. But if it was, they would be the same. And if 2 was measuring 100 degrees, then 6 would also measure 100 degrees. Okay, so these guys are going to be, I'm going to just start and put congruent here. Okie dokie, let's go to the next one. The next one we're going to talk about is your alternate interior angle pairs. Okay, let's talk about words again. What does alternate mean? Or alternate? Either way, one's a verb, one's a noun, right? Or Adjective, yeah, but this is math class, so back to math. Alternate is going to mean, or alternate means to go back and forth. Okay? We'll talk about that more in a second. What does interior mean? Interior is like the inside of something. So when we say interior in this case, we're talking about the inside of these two parallel lines. So we're talking about this whole region here. That's what we mean when we say interior or inside in this case. When we're talking about alternating, we're talking about alternating sides of the transversal. Remember, this guy is your transversal, and alternating would be different sides of it and also different sides this way. So let me show you a couple of pairs. So alternate interior angles. This 3, okay, first of all, we're looking for interior. So I'm not going to use the 4, the 1, the 7, or the 6. None of those are interior. We're just looking at 3, 2, 8, and 5. Okay, so we've got the 3. He's an interior angle. And now we're going to go to the other side, or the alternate side of the transversal, and we're going to go down to the other parallel line as well, and we're going to circle the 5. So the 3 and the 5 are alternate interior angles, and they would be congruent to each other. There's only one more pair of alternate interior angles. Let's see if we can find it. Maybe you already see it. I'm going to give you a hint. It starts with the 2. And then the other half of that pair is going to be on the 8. Okay, so you've got 3 and 5 and 2 and 8. Make sure you're inside of those parallel lines for the alternate interior angle pairs. And are they congruent? Yes. Alternate interior angle pairs are also congruent. Not all of these relationships are going to be congruent. We're going to get to some in a second that are supplementary, but a lot of them are congruent, which is really handy. Okay, let's talk about alternate exterior. Now we already know what alternate means. It's like go back and forth, right? Exterior is going to mean outside. And in this case, we're talking about outside of these parallel lines. So it's going to be this region and this region. So this is where we're going to be talking about angles 4, 1, 7, and 6. Okay, so let's start with angle 4. And now let's alternate to the other exterior side, and we're going to circle angle 6 to go with it. So 4 and 6 are alternate exterior angles. There's only one other set of alternate exterior angles. It's going to be 1. What do you think 1 is going to match with? If you said 7, you are correct. It goes to 7 because that's the alternate side. Okay? All right, so that was alternate exterior, and those are also congruent. I'll write it over here. Congruent. Okay, so these first 3 we studied were all congruent, which is super handy because you don't even have to do math. You just have to recognize it's congruent, and then you know it's the same measure. Okay, next up we have vertical angle pairs. Now these we studied quite a bit when we were talking about triangles in the last unit, so this should be a little bit familiar. Whenever we have this X formation where you have one line crossing another line, you have this X. The ones that are across from each other are vertical angles, and those are congruent. So what is the vertical angle with 4? You just kind of jump straight across. It's going to be the 2. And what would the vertical angle be with the 3 here? You just jump straight across, and that will be a 1. What about a vertical angle with the 7? It'd be 5, right? Good. And then the vertical angle that matches with 8 is going to be 6. Okay, let's go to... Oh, wait, I almost forgot. These are also congruent, so let's write that down. Congruent. Okay, now let's talk about some supplementary pairs. So here we have adjacent angle pairs. Let's talk about that word adjacent. Adjacent just means like next door to, right next to. So like Josh's bedroom is adjacent to his brother's bedroom. They're right next door to each other, right? Okay, so adjacent angle pairs, you could have anything that's basically right next door to each other. And this is going to be a lot like the linear pairs we studied in the triangles unit. Okay, a lot like those. So you could have maybe angles 1 and 4. See how those are next door to each other? Or you could have angle 5 and angle 6. See how those are next door to each other? So those are your adjacent angles. Now adjacent angles are supplementary, which means they add up to be 180 degrees. So let's write this down, supplementary. I'm running out of room. Squeeze. Okay, I hope you can read that. Supplementary and then that means adds up to 180. So together they will total 180 degrees. All right, so that's your adjacent angles. We've only got one left. Consecutive interior. What does that word consecutive mean? It means like in a row, right? 2 in a row, 3 in a row, whatever. Consecutive interior angles, or there's that word interior again. So you know that we're going to be looking just at this part of the transversals. And you're going to have 2 in a row. So maybe like 2 and 5. Now these are not adjacent because the adjacent angles always share a side. See that? They always share a side. These two angles do not share a side. They're kind of built on the same line, but they're not sharing a side. So, but they are 2 in a row. So they are consecutive interior because they're 2 in a row and they're on the interior. They're inside. Where's another set of consecutive interior? Well, right here, 3 and 8. Also consecutive interior. And like the adjacent angle pairs, these are supplementary. Okay, so those are supplementary angles. And now you know all 6 of the angle relationships, and you are ready to start your assignment. And it is going to look like this. So on this first page, make sure you read the instructions. The first page, you just identify whether they're corresponding, alternate interior, alternate exterior, consecutive interior, vertical, or adjacent. Which one of those 6 are these? You don't have to know any measurements or anything. You just identify them. And then on the next page, then you're going to identify the relationship and find the measure of the missing angle. So for example here, these are, let's see, they're interior and they're alternate sides of the transversal. So I'm going to go with alternate interior angles. That's what I would write there. And I know that alternate interior angles are congruent, so the missing angle would be the same measure as this one. And so the missing angle would measure 78 degrees. Okie dokie. Let us know if you have any questions. We love hearing from you. Thanks for watching. Bye.